Good morning, good afternoon, good night. As you know, I'm Myrna Loy of Blackbright News, which can be found at www.issuu.com/Blackbright News. Now, I've called this video Like Father, Like Son because we have too many boys on the street and we need to know why they're there. Too many young boys are dying. Too many young boys taking up bad habits. Too many young boys looking like criminals. And the reason why I say like father, like son is because historically the father was the person who the son identified with. The son would look after the father, look up to the father. You'd even have businesses called, Father and Son or Campbell and Sons, where the son looked up to the father went ahead in reputation, and his reputation preceded him, and the son would look up to his father. They'd go football, they'd go out, and he got his identity through his father. Now, in the advent of absent fathers, what do these young boys do? Now, they grow up in homes where their mothers, probably their mother's sisters, their aunts, the male role models are missing. They go to school, they've got a female teacher. They go to work, they have a female employer, and they're becoming feminized. What happens when they become feminized or when they're surrounded by women? They're looking to vent their masculine side. How do they vent their masculine side? What do they see as being a replica of who they would want as a father, or how they envision their father to be? They know their father is not going to have the traits of their mother. So they look at the TV and they look at people like Van Damme and Al Pacino and Shaft and all, the Wesley Snipes and all of those kind of guys that are, that go around killing people, they're having crashes and they're doing all kinds of things, that masculine, in quote, men do. And they see that as being the role of a male. And they go to the streets to find their role models. They go to the streets to find their identity, tearing themselves away from the female. They actually have some kind of resentment, a lot of young boys, against their mothers. Some of them even blame their mothers for their fathers not being around and not having that person with whom they can identify with. So where am I going with this? We have young boys on the street, and some of them are equipped with guns, or some of them are equipped with knives, some of them are equipped with drugs. Why are they on the street? What are they escaping from? Why are they not in the home? Why are their parents or their mother or their father allowing them to be on the street late at night? Why are they dressing in a way that makes them look criminal? Why are they making themselves such obvious targets? What are they seeking? When they know that they dress a certain way and they know they're going to draw negative attention, why do they do that? They do that because any attention is better than no attention at all. Sometimes in the home they're neglected. Sometimes in the home there's abuse. Sometimes they're in the home they're on their own, they're isolated. So they go out and seek what they can. And some of these, I don't even know what to call them. They find, when they see boys on the street late at night, they know why they're on the street. They know that those young boys are looking for attention, they're looking for endorsement, and they know that they're looking for acknowledgement. And they know they're looking for money. So what do they say? You okay, bruv? Using their language. If you need a couple of quid, just ask me. I can give you a couple of quid. Give them a couple of quid. Next time it's more, it's more. Give them a few drugs, give them this, give them that. And the next thing you know, they say, look, I've been helping you out for quite a long time, mate. It's time for you to pay me back and show your appreciation. And that's when the vicious cycle starts. Our young boys are on the street because we neglect them at home. Mothers are trying to do two jobs. They're trying to do the mother and the father role. A lot of times it means that they spend a lot of time outside the home. And so the boy, who, you know, whatever age he is, sometimes they're just glad that he's with his friends enjoying, in quotes, themselves, or they're on the games or on their, whatever they're on, the console or whatever it is. But sometimes the parents are just relieved that they don't have to worry and that their children seem quiet and their children are out of the way and their children seem happy, not realizing that their young children are feeling isolated, they're feeling depressed, they're feeling neglected, and they're going outside the home to have those needs met in whichever way they can. And by the time the mothers have, or the parents have cottoned on, it's too late. They get a call from the police officer, or a police officer shows up at their door and they say, oh, well, he was such a good boy. He never used to do this. He never used to do that. What would you know? You're too busy at work. You're too busy trying to make ends meet, and you're forgetting about the needs of your children. The thing is, you brought these children into the world. And regardless of your financial responsibilities and obligations, you have an obligation to that child to make sure that child's needs are met for as long as possible. You can't give that child everything it needs in the material sense. But when you give a child what it needs emotionally, it doesn't really crave for the material. A lot of it's like, even if you're in a relationship, you know, sometimes you'll be in a romantic adult relationship, and sometimes when your emotional needs are met, it doesn't matter about the material. Two people can be in a little hut and they can be happy when the two people's emotional needs and comforts are being met. But when the material needs are not, they don't need the material. But when those emotional needs are not being met, and there's no comfort, and there's no stability, and there's no love, and there's no security, you know, you're just heading for the gutter. You're just going downhill. And that's what's happening to these young boys. They're running away from what they're unfamiliar with, and they're trying to look for fathers in somebody else. And because they don't have the guidance and they don't have the discernment, they're meeting up with the wrong people. And then they end up trying to defend themselves. A lot of these young boys are just scared children. And they end up in a situation where they have to fight. They become like lions. They have to defend themselves. They have to have weapons. Because their parents have driven them out the house due to neglect. The parents don't do it deliberately. They don't consciously think, I'm neglecting my son, or, well, I'll talk about boys for the time being, but they don't think I'm neglecting my son. A lot of these women believe that their son are men. They don't realise that they are boys in need of love and communication and nurturance and support. I've seen women raise sons, and they raise them to be wonderful boys because they've communicated with them, they've shown them love, and they've shown them attention, and those boys can go to their mothers, especially in a lot of African families. But when you have families where, you know, the boy is seen as macho, the boy is supposed to go out and bring home the bacon and look after the family, and the boy is pushed out of the house prematurely to do a male role. A lot of times that is what happens, and the boy's needs are not being met, so they're left to the streets, and that's where they defend themselves. And then because they're trying to be one with a group, they're trying to be in, you know, have that camaraderie with others, they dress in a certain way that attracts attention. Then then comes the necessity for the stop and search. But the stop and search is just a band-aid. It's not tackling the problem of poverty, the problem of neglect, the problem of abuse, the reason why these young boys are committing crimes, why they're carrying weapons, why they're dealing drugs, why they're even on the streets in the first place. The stop and search, all that is doing is stopping people who look like a certain stereotype, these same young boys I'm referring to, who want to belong. They want to belong to someone, whoever it is, and they end up in the wrong company. So young boys need to change the record. They need to become the role model they wanted for themselves. And they need to create a better state of affairs for the family. They need to be the fathers. They need to be the men. They need to be the role models. They need to have that identity, that male identity that so many of these young boys crave for the coming generation. Otherwise, we're not going to have any men. Our men are going to be dead. Our men are going to be in prison. Our men are going to be in the mental institutions. You know, our men are going off the rails, left, right and centre, committing suicide, doing all sorts when it's just a cry for help and no one's listening. Adults need to listen. And even if you haven't got children, you need to look at children, and when you see them, you need to talk to them. A lot of these guys that look rude and look bad, when you speak to them, they sound like kids, they sound like children. You know, you expect them from their appearance to come over as hard and tough as nails, but they're not like that. So you need to talk to them when you have an opportunity. You need to engage them and see if you can make a difference. When you think of the Bible, I'm going to just bring this in because when you think of the Bible, Jesus never spoke of his mother. His allegiance was with the Father, his Father God. And all throughout the Bible, Jesus refers to the Father, the Father's work, and a lot of fathers, they need to teach their children, their sons, work ethic, because these men are growing up lazy and they're not making good men for wives or good partners. So there's a lot of things men need to do. They need to step up to the plate. They were born to lead. They were born to reign. And they were born to raise good sons. And they've allowed women to intimidate them and lose their place. So you've got to turn the table, guys. Otherwise, what's going to happen to our boys? That's all I've got to say.